The Great Wall, 2016, brought together an international ensemble of talent, blending Hollywood star power with some of China's biggest names in film. The movie was unique in its casting approach, intended to create a bridge between Eastern and Western cinema. By choosing prominent actors from both regions, the film attempted to appeal to a global audience. Here, we delve into the careers of the main actors, examining their professional history, their contributions to this film, and the effect the movie had on their subsequent work. Matt Damon was the most high-profile actor in the cast, known globally for his versatility and dedication to his roles. Before The Great Wall, Damon had already established himself as a bankable and critically respected actor. His career had been marked by standout performances in films such as Good Will Hunting, for which he won an Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay alongside Ben Affleck, and the Bourne franchise, which cemented his place as an action star. He had also appeared in dramas like The Departed, Syriana, and The Martian, the latter of which earned him both box office success and critical acclaim. Damon brought credibility and recognition to The Great Wall, and his role as William Guerin, a European mercenary in ancient China, was a departure from many of his previous works. The role demanded not only physical endurance due to its action-heavy scenes, but also a careful navigation of cultural context, as Damon was a white protagonist in a predominantly Chinese narrative. While Damon's performance was generally solid, some critics and audiences questioned the decision to cast a Western actor in the lead role, leading to discussions about white savior narratives in cinema. Despite the controversy, the film did not severely impact Damon's career. He continued to land major roles in high-profile projects afterward, including Downsizing, Ford v Ferrari, and Stillwater. Jiang Tian, who played Commander Lin Mei, was one of the most prominent Chinese actors featured in the film. Known in the West as Jing Tian, she had a rising profile in Chinese cinema before The Great Wall, having starred in movies like Special ID and Police Story, 2013. Her casting was meant to appeal to Chinese audiences and balance the narrative with a strong female lead. Jing Tian's character was a commanding presence and represented discipline, honor, and strength. She played the only female commander of the Nameless Order, a role that added depth and balance to the male-heavy cast. Her performance received mixed reviews internationally, with some praising her poise and physical commitment, while others felt the script limited her character development. Nonetheless, appearing in a high-budget Hollywood film elevated her profile internationally. Following The Great Wall, Jing Tian appeared in other Western blockbusters like Kong, Skull Island, and Pacific Rim Uprising, though her roles remained secondary. She remained active in the Chinese entertainment industry, participating in both film and television. Pedro Pascal portrayed Tovar, William Guerin's sarcastic and morally flexible companion. Pascal was already familiar to many viewers from his standout role as Oberyn Martell in Game of Thrones and his work on the Netflix series Narcos. His charisma and delivery made Tovar one of the more memorable characters in the film, adding levity to the otherwise serious tone. Pascal's background in television drama helped him navigate the fast-paced narrative and provide a grounded, human element amidst the spectacle. The Great Wall did not define his career, but it marked his transition into larger blockbuster films. After this movie, Pascal's career trajectory continued to rise rapidly, eventually leading to major roles in Wonder Woman 1984, The Mandalorian, and The Last of Us series. Willem Dafoe appeared as Ballard, a European who had been captured by the Chinese and remained within the wall. Known for his eccentric roles and intense screen presence, Dafoe was a veteran actor whose filmography included acclaimed performances in Platoon, The English Patient, Spider-Man, and The Lighthouse. In The Great Wall, his character functioned as a narrative device, bridging the Western and Eastern storylines. While Dafoe brought gravitas to the film, his role was underutilized, with limited screen time and character development. The movie did not make a significant mark on his career, and he continued to receive critical praise in subsequent roles, including his Oscar-nominated performance in The Florida Project and his return to the Spider-Man franchise in No Way Home. Andy Lau, one of the most famous and respected actors in Hong Kong cinema, played strategist Wang. His presence was a strong nod to the film's Chinese audience, as Lau had been a dominant figure in Asian cinema for decades. With a career spanning over 100 films, Lau was known for his work in Infernal Affairs, House of Flying Daggers, and Running Out of Time. In The Great Wall, his role was more intellectual and strategic, fitting his persona as a dignified and cerebral actor. Although his part was not central to the action, he helped ground the film with a sense of authenticity and tradition. For many Chinese viewers, Lau's participation lent legitimacy to the Hollywood Chinese co-production. The movie did not significantly shift his career, but it showcased his continued relevance and adaptability as an actor. Zhang Yimou and Eddie Peng also played notable roles as military leaders. Zhang Yimou, known for his work in Assembly and Operation Mekong, brought intensity and experience to his role as General Xiaobo. Eddie Peng, a rising star known for his physicality in martial arts and action films, added youthful energy and charisma. Their presence emphasized the strength of Chinese acting talent and helped balance the East-West casting dynamic. Another notable mention is Lu Han, a former member of the K-pop boy band EXO who had transitioned into acting. His role as a young soldier in training served to attract younger demographics and capitalize on his massive fan base. Although his role was small, Lu Han's involvement increased the film's visibility among Asian youth and was part of the broader marketing strategy. The casting of The Great Wall was both a creative and commercial decision. It reflected the producer's attempt to create a hybrid film that could succeed in both Eastern and Western markets. While the film's casting sparked debates around cultural representation and narrative authenticity, it also showcased the possibility of collaboration between diverse film industries. For some actors like Pascal and Jing Tian, the movie was a stepping stone into broader international visibility. For others like Damon and Defoe, it was a brief detour for more critically acclaimed work. Overall, the ensemble cast brought a mix of experience, global appeal, and performance range, even if the material sometimes limited the depth of their roles. The Great Wall may not have dramatically altered the course of anyone's career, but it stands as an interesting moment in international film casting, one that highlighted both the potential and the challenges of cross-cultural cinematic collaboration. The Great Wall was more than just a big-budget fantasy action film. It represented a pivotal moment in the collaboration between Hollywood and the Chinese film industry. While the movie itself received mixed reactions from both critics and audiences, its release marked an important milestone in the globalization of cinema. This page explores the cultural impact and historical significance of The Great Wall, examining how it shaped conversations about representation, industry partnerships, and the evolving landscape of global film production. At its core, The Great Wall was one of the earliest and most visible examples of a co-production between Hollywood and China. With a budget exceeding $150 million, and with Chinese film company China Film Group and Legendary East collaborating with Universal Pictures, it was a clear signal that the film industry was beginning to look beyond traditional Western markets. The partnership was emblematic of a new era in which Chinese box office returns were becoming just as important, if not more so, than those in North America. This shift in focus had long-term implications for how films were developed, cast, and marketed in the years that followed. The Great Wall's ambition was to bridge two cinematic worlds, combining Hollywood spectacle with Chinese mythology and aesthetic. Its narrative, which centered around European mercenaries encountering a secret Chinese army defending against mythical creatures, was a deliberate attempt to merge Western fantasy storytelling with elements inspired by ancient Chinese legends. Although the execution was criticized by many for being simplistic or culturally awkward, the effort to blend cultures in a high-stakes blockbuster format became a subject of widespread discussion. One of the film's most significant cultural impacts was its role in reigniting conversations about representation and cultural authenticity in global cinema. The casting of Matt Damon in the lead role sparked controversy and accusations of whitewashing and white savior storytelling, a trope in which a white protagonist is inserted into a foreign culture and ultimately becomes its hero. Critics and viewers debated whether the film had undermined its own cultural setting by centering the narrative around a Western character. Some argued that the inclusion of an American star was a business decision aimed at international appeal, while others saw it as another example of Hollywood's tendency to sideline local voices in favor of global marketability. Despite the backlash, the film also brought attention to the importance of incorporating Chinese actors and culture into mainstream Western cinema. For many Chinese audiences, seeing stars like Jing Tian, Andy Lau, and Eddie Peng in a Hollywood production was a source of pride. The film's release prompted broader conversations about the need for Hollywood to respect and authentically represent Asian cultures, rather than simply using them as exotic backdrops. This discourse would continue to evolve over the next few years, especially as films like Crazy Rich Asians and Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings would emerge, putting Asian characters and culture front and center. The film's aesthetic and mythology also left a mark, albeit subtly, on pop culture. While The Great Wall did not become a meme-generating blockbuster in the way that some other big-budget fantasy films did, certain visual elements, such as the color-coded armor of the Nameless Order, the towering wall, and the coordinated defense formations, were admired for their creativity and often discussed in online fan circles. Cosplay communities, particularly in Asia, embraced the film's costume design, with fans replicating the elaborate armor and weaponry. The movie's mythical creatures, known as the Tao Ti, added a unique spin on the traditional monster invasion genre and contributed to the expanding library of creature design in modern fantasy cinema. In terms of political significance, The Great Wall was a reflection of China's growing influence in global media and entertainment. By participating in and partly financing a Hollywood blockbuster, China signaled its intention to not only be a market for content but also a creator and curator of it. The Chinese government has long used cinema as a soft power tool, and The Great Wall fit within a broader strategy of using international co-productions to reshape global perceptions of Chinese culture. The film's narrative, which emphasized unity, discipline, and sacrifice for the greater good, aligned with themes often promoted by Chinese state media. While subtle, this alignment was noticed by cultural analysts and sparked debate about the role of national narratives in entertainment. Another interesting aspect of the film's cultural footprint was how it opened doors for other East-West collaborations. While not every co-production that followed was successful, The Great Wall made it clear that there was an appetite for such projects, both financially and creatively. Studios began to take Chinese markets more seriously, often including Chinese actors, settings, or plot elements to appeal to this growing audience. In the years after The Great Wall, several Hollywood films made notable efforts to include China-centric narratives or collaborate with Chinese production teams. However, the film also served as a cautionary tale. Many producers and creatives in the industry observed that simply adding elements from different cultures without a cohesive narrative strategy or deep respect for those cultures could backfire. The Great Wall's reception revealed that global audiences are discerning and increasingly resistant to tokenism or forced multiculturalism. This realization pushed future productions to invest more in culturally nuanced storytelling and authentic representation. Despite its commercial and critical struggles, The Great Wall continues to be referenced in academic and industry discussions as an example of the challenges and potential of global filmmaking. It is often used as a case study in film schools when discussing international co-productions, media representation, and transnational cinema. The discourse surrounding the movie has contributed to a greater awareness of how narratives are shaped, who tells them, and how power dynamics influence global storytelling. Even in popular media, the film has found occasional references. Satirical shows, online reviewers, and meme creators have commented on the cultural dissonance present in the film. While some of this attention was critical or mocking, it kept the movie in the public consciousness longer than its box office run might have otherwise allowed. Over time, its status has shifted from that of a failed blockbuster to a fascinating, if flawed, cultural artifact from a time when global cinema was undergoing rapid transformation. In summary, The Great Wall holds a complex place in cinematic history. It was a film that aimed to unite two worlds and, in doing so, illuminated the difficulties and opportunities inherent in cross-cultural storytelling. It sparked meaningful discussions about representation, industry collaboration, and cultural identity in mainstream entertainment. Whether viewed as a misstep or a milestone, The Great Wall's cultural impact lies in the questions it raised and the conversations it provoked, which continue to resonate in today's evolving media landscape. The making of the Great Wall was one of the most ambitious cinematic undertakings of the mid-2010s, representing a fusion of Eastern and Western filmmaking styles. From its inception, the film was conceived not just as a piece of entertainment, but as a cultural bridge. This ambition brought with it a host of unique production challenges, creative decisions, and behind-the-scenes stories that shaped the final product. The production team included professionals from across the globe, and managing a project of this scale required a delicate balance of artistic vision, logistical coordination, and cultural sensitivity. At the helm of the film was director Zhang Yimou, one of China's most celebrated filmmakers, known for his work on visually rich, emotionally resonant films such as Hero, House of Flying Daggers, and Raise the Red Lantern. Zhang brought his signature eye for color, movement, and spectacle to the Great Wall, especially in scenes featuring mass choreography and military formations. However, this was his first English-language film, and he was working within the framework of a Hollywood blockbuster, which came with its own set of expectations and constraints. Navigating these unfamiliar waters was a learning experience for both Zhang and the Western producers, who had to adjust to each other's creative rhythms and working styles. The screenplay for the film went through multiple drafts, with contributions from several writers, including Carlo Bernard, Doug Moreau, and Tony Gilroy, the latter of whom had previously worked with Matt Damon on the Bourne franchise. The script evolved over time to better balance character development, action sequences, and the blending of cultural elements. Early drafts were reportedly more grounded in traditional fantasy tropes, while later versions leaned into spectacle and themes of unity and trust. Balancing the narrative to satisfy both Chinese and Western audiences was a constant challenge during development, and creative disagreements occasionally arose during the writing process. One of the most impressive aspects of the production was the scale of its set design and the logistics involved in shooting such a massive film. The majority of the filming took place in China, with principal photography beginning in March 2015. One of the key locations was the Qingdao Oriental Movie Metropolis, a major film studio complex built to support large-scale international productions. Parts of the Great Wall were constructed as practical sets, allowing for authentic-looking environments that actors could interact with directly. These physical builds, combined with extensive green screen work, helped to create the illusion of a sprawling fantasy version of the actual Great Wall of China. The actual Great Wall, of course, served as the primary inspiration for the movie's setting, though it was never meant to depict a strictly historical version of the wall. Instead, the film presented a fantastical reimagining, complete with elaborate defense systems, futuristic siege weapons, and the Nameless Order, a fictional elite military force trained to protect humanity from monstrous invaders. The decision to go in a fantasy direction gave the filmmakers creative freedom, but also increased the complexity of the production, as visual effects had to seamlessly blend with practical footage and elaborate costume designs. Zhang Yimou was deeply involved in every aspect of the film's visual style. He personally oversaw the color-coded organization of the Nameless Order, assigning specific colors to each division: blue for the Crane Corps, red for the Bear Troops, purple for the Eagle Archers, and so on. This system not only looked striking on screen but also helped audiences keep track of different characters during chaotic battle scenes. The use of color and movement echoed Zhang's previous work in Chinese historical epics, where visual storytelling often carried as much weight as dialogue. The film also required a significant amount of stunt work and physical choreography. The cast underwent months of training in martial arts, weapon handling, and military drills. Jing Tian, who played Commander Lin Mei, had no prior experience with such intense action roles, but committed herself to the rigorous physical training. She performed many of her own stunts, including the iconic crane diving sequences, which were achieved using a combination of wire work and digital effects. Matt Damon and Pedro Pascal also engaged in extensive stunt training to ensure their movements felt authentic within the context of the Nameless Order's disciplined fighting style. The creature design was another major component of the film's behind-the-scenes process. The Tao Ti, the monstrous antagonists of the film, were designed to be both terrifying and symbolic. According to production notes, their design was inspired by ancient Chinese mythology and animal totems. The idea was to create creatures that felt otherworldly, but still rooted in a believable biological structure. The visual effects team, led by Industrial Light and Magic and other major VFX houses, spent months refining the look and movement of the Tao Ti. They focused on giving the creatures coordinated behavior, similar to swarming insects or predatory packs, which added to the tension in battle sequences. Coordination between the various international departments posed a significant logistical challenge. The crew included technicians, designers, and coordinators from the United States, China, Australia, and Europe, all working together across language and cultural barriers. Translators were present on set to facilitate communication, and meetings often had to be held in multiple languages. While this occasionally slowed down the production process, it also fostered a sense of collaboration and mutual respect. Many crew members described the experience as one of the most culturally enriching of their careers. Costume designer Macy Rubio, known for her work on Avatar and World War Z, played a critical role in defining the visual identity of the film's characters. The costumes had to be both functional for action sequences and visually distinct to reflect the film's elaborate hierarchy of warriors. Each division of the Nameless Order had a unique armor design tailored to their fighting style, and Rubio collaborated closely with Zhang Yimou to ensure that the designs were grounded in Chinese aesthetics while still being accessible to international audiences. Despite the meticulous planning, the production faced several challenges. Inclement weather occasionally disrupted outdoor shoots, particularly during scenes set against wide-open landscapes or when using practical pyrotechnics. Coordinating large battle sequences with hundreds of extras, many of whom were local hires, required extensive rehearsal and precise timing. Safety was a top priority, especially in sequences involving fire, explosions, and complex stunt work. Though no major injuries were reported, the intense physical demands of the production left many cast and crew members exhausted by the end of each day. Another challenge was managing the post-production timeline. Given the film's heavy reliance on visual effects, editing and digital rendering took nearly a year to complete. Zhang Yimou was heavily involved in post-production, reviewing hundreds of visual effects shots to ensure consistency with his vision. He worked closely with editors to maintain the film's pacing and emphasize the human drama amid the fantasy action. The Great Wall follows a structured and fast-paced narrative typical of the action fantasy genre, with clear plot beats, character arcs, and a central conflict that builds toward an explosive climax. While the story draws from elements of traditional hero's journey narratives, it also incorporates themes from Chinese folklore and military strategy, blended with a Hollywood blockbuster formula. The plot moves swiftly, with action sequences punctuating moments of character development and exposition. The narrative is framed through the eyes of Western mercenaries who stumble into a conflict much larger than themselves, offering a point of entry for international audiences while immersing them in an exotic and mythical world. The story begins with two European mercenaries, William Guerin and Tovar, traveling across the northern regions of China in search of the legendary black powder, an early form of gunpowder believed to be a powerful and valuable weapon. They are part of a larger group, but the film opens with the two of them surviving a desert ambush that leaves their companions dead. While fleeing a mysterious creature during the night, they sever its arm and take it with them as they continue their journey. This cold open immediately introduces the audience to the film's mythological threat, the Tao Ti, and sets the tone for a story where the fantastical intersects with grounded historical elements. The mercenaries soon find themselves captured by the Nameless Order, an elite army stationed at a massive fortress on the Great Wall. This organization is dedicated to defending China from periodic attacks by the Tao Ti, a horde of alien-like monsters that descend every 60 years to devour everything in their path. These creatures are said to have emerged from a meteor crash and now serve as a metaphorical and literal force of chaos. William and Tovar are initially imprisoned, suspected of being spies or thieves, but their possession of the severed Tao Ti arm earns them temporary credibility among their captors. Here, the narrative introduces several key characters within the Nameless Order, including Commander Lin Mei, General Xiaoba, and strategist Wang. Through exposition and observation, William begins to understand the purpose and discipline of this mysterious army. Each unit of the Nameless Order has a distinct combat specialty, and the military hierarchy is tightly controlled. William and Tovar witness the military's elaborate defense tactics during an initial attack by the Tao Ti. This large-scale battle serves as an early set piece and showcases the scale of the threat the army faces. The film then transitions into a period of mutual understanding and cooperation between the Western mercenaries and the Nameless Order. William, who is initially driven purely by greed and survival, begins to admire the dedication and bravery of the soldiers around him, particularly Lin Mei. Tovar, on the other hand, remains cynical and opportunistic, focused on escaping with the secret of black powder. This dynamic sets up an internal conflict between the two companions, foreshadowing later choices that define their respective character arcs. As the plot progresses, William earns the trust of Commander Lin and becomes more involved in the army's strategy. He uses his knowledge of Western tactics and archery to assist during battles, proving himself not only as a skilled fighter, but as someone willing to fight for a cause larger than himself. This transformation aligns with the traditional hero's journey structure, where the protagonist evolves from a self-serving outsider to a committed member of the community he once viewed with suspicion or ignorance. The middle act of the film focuses on several tactical battles, reconnaissance missions, and the gradual uncovering of the Tao Ti's behavior. Strategist Wang discovers that the creatures are organized and controlled by a single queen, whose commands are transmitted through alpha drones, distinctive Tao Ti with bioluminescent features. The idea is that by killing the queen, the entire horde can be stopped, as the rest of the creatures operate under a hive mind. This revelation shifts the narrative toward a mission-focused direction: find and eliminate the queen before the Tao Ti breach the wall and devastate the capital. Meanwhile, Defoe's character, Ballard, who has been living among the Nameless Order as a captive advisor for years, conspires with Tovar to escape with stolen black powder. Their subplot creates a secondary tension in the story, as their actions threaten the stability of the defense effort. When William chooses to stay and help the Nameless Order instead of fleeing, it cements his moral transformation and sets up the climax of the film. The third act sees the Tao Ti breaching the Great Wall through an underground tunnel, prompting a desperate counterattack. William and Lin Mei, along with a small elite team, travel to the Imperial City, where the Queen is leading a full-scale assault. The climax takes place in the capital's central tower, a dramatic setting filled with stained-glass windows, vertical spaces, and ornate architecture. The setting enhances the visual impact of the final confrontation, which combines close-quarters combat, aerial maneuvers, and strategic use of explosives. The final plan involves launching a magnetic bomb near the Queen using a hot air balloon, an invention recently introduced by strategist Wang as a new form of flight. The scene is tense and layered with obstacles. They must break through enemy lines, get close enough to the Queen, and detonate the device in a precise manner. William, Lin Mei, and Peng Yong work together in this final effort, using their unique skills to overcome the horde and deliver the killing blow. The bomb is successfully deployed, killing the Queen and causing the rest of the Tao Ti to collapse, as expected. The story concludes with a quiet moment of reflection. William is offered a position among the Nameless Order, but chooses to leave, his arc complete. He has found something greater than himself in the form of loyalty, honor, and purpose. Tovar, who had escaped earlier, is captured and reunited with William, allowing the story to end on a note of closure and subtle reconciliation. In terms of narrative structure, The Great Wall follows a conventional three-act format with a strong inciting incident, a developing central conflict, and a climactic resolution. The pacing is tight, moving briskly from one action beat to the next, but occasionally at the expense of deeper character exploration or thematic nuance. While the plot does not break new ground in terms of originality, it functions effectively as a vehicle for visual spectacle and symbolic storytelling. Each act is punctuated with large-scale action sequences that reflect the film's priorities, delivering awe-inspiring visuals and showcasing the coordination of the Nameless Order. The Great Wall deploys several interwoven themes that range from collective unity to individual identity and uses symbolic imagery to reinforce its narrative. While the film functions primarily as an action fantasy spectacle, beneath that surface it offers reflections on power, cultural confrontation, sacrifice, and the meaning of belonging. One of the most prominent themes is unity in diversity. The Nameless Order is composed of divisions designated by colored armor: blue, red, purple, black, white, each representing a specialized combat unit. This color coding symbolizes how different strengths and skill sets collaborate to form a cohesive whole. The visual metaphor suggests that unity is not homogeneity. Rather, it's collaboration among distinct roles. This theme echoes in the plot. William and Tovar, outsiders from Europe, gradually integrate with the Order, learning to fight and contribute as part of the collective. Identity and transformation are explored most deeply through William Guerin's arc. He begins as a mercenary driven by personal profit and becomes a disciplined warrior aligned with the Nameless Order's cause. His transformation highlights the tension between self-interest and social responsibility. William's internal conflict, combined with his changing loyalties, symbolizes the possibility of personal evolution, particularly when faced with cultural immersion and moral awakening. The motif of sacrifice weaves through the narrative. Soldiers routinely risk everything to hold the wall during Tao Ti assaults. One memorable scene involves the Red Bear warriors using explosive charges in suicidal charges to delay the monsters, a vivid depiction of self-sacrifice for the greater good. This underlines the film's message that heroism lies not in glory or reward, but in willingness to protect others at great personal cost. The Tao Ti themselves function as symbolic forces of chaos and destruction. Their hive mind behavior, coordinated attacks, and relentless aggression serve as metaphors for overwhelming threats, natural disasters, invading armies, even internal moral decay. The Queen Tao Ti, the hive center of control, represents centralized evil or authoritarian command, and her defeat is symbolic of dismantling oppressive systems that rely on blind obedience. Another thematic strand centers on tradition versus innovation. The Nameless Order relies on centuries-old rituals, ceremonies, and defense techniques. Their discipline is a legacy passed down through generations. Yet they are also forced to adapt, as when they adopt gunpowder and hot air balloons devised by William and Wang to defeat the Queen. This juxtaposition of ancient tradition with technological innovation symbolizes the potential harmony between old wisdom and new knowledge. Cultural encounter and cross-cultural exchange are implicit throughout the film. William and Tovar's arrival in China is initially transactional, looting black powder, but their continued exposure introduces them to a system of values rooted in duty, honor, and collective responsibility. This theme critiques the notion of cultural superiority by illustrating how outsiders can learn from and become part of another culture's legacy. Idealized though simplified, the film gestures toward the benefits of humility and mutual respect. Power and leadership are also central. Commander Lin Mei embodies a version of leadership grounded in competence, discipline, and moral integrity. She is contrasted with subordinate officers who display pride or self-interest. Strategist Wang represents cerebral leadership, relying on insight and adaptability rather than brute force. William's growth in leadership style, from self-centered mercenary to tactical ally, illustrates the ways individuals can adopt more enlightened forms of power. The film's visual imagery reinforces symbolic meaning. The repeated visuals of the Great Wall stretching across barren terrain evokes endurance, resilience, and isolation. It stands as both shield and boundary between chaos and civilization, human ingenuity and monstrous threats. The wall's illuminated watchtowers, defensive scaffolding, and synchronized formations convey order, human ingenuity, and collective perseverance. Mirroring motifs emphasize duality. William and Tovar are opposites, one transformed by experience, the other locked in cynicism. The Tao Ti Queen and the Nameless Order's queen-like structure contrast life-preserving order with life-destroying command. These mirrored pairs underscore the film's exploration of contrasting values, selfishness versus altruism, chaos versus discipline. The narrative also implies commentary on cooperation across cultural and ideological divisions. The Western protagonists bring fresh perspective to entrenched systems, helping catalyze change. Yet they ultimately leave, as William departs at the end, suggesting that change can come from within rather than through permanent external leadership. The film posits that adaptation and progress are possible when guided by those who understand and respect local traditions. Romantic subtext between William and Lin May subtly reinforces themes of connection across cultural barriers. Their mutual respect and partnership suggest that alliances, both emotional and strategic, can form even in the face of profound differences. While not a central romance, their camaraderie highlights how shared purpose can lead to deep human bonds. The film's climax, in which the Tao Te Queen is destroyed by a hybrid weapon, encapsulates multiple themes: unity across units, technological innovation, individual bravery, and the triumph of order over chaos. The coordinated operation reflects collective strategy. The sacrifice of several soldiers underscores the cost of defense, and the choice to use gunpowder and balloon technology echoes the merging of tradition with innovation. In summary, The Great Wall explores themes of unity, identity, sacrifice, innovation, and cross-cultural encounter. Its symbolism is woven through visual codes, color, architecture, creature design, and narrative arcs, personal transformation, collective struggle, leadership. While the film may not deeply interrogate these themes, it consistently gestures toward them through its design, action, and character dynamics. These layers give the movie more interpretive substance than it might appear to possess on the surface. The Great Wall stands out among fantasy and action films of its era for its striking and deliberate visual design. Directed by Zhang Yimou, whose background in both film and stage performance is steeped in color symbolism and choreographed spectacle, the movie's visual language is perhaps its most distinctive feature. Even critics who found fault with the narrative or character development often acknowledged the film's impressive visual craftsmanship. Everything from the costume design to the large-scale battle sequences is carefully curated to create a cinematic experience that is as much about visual awe as it is about storytelling. Zhang Yimou has long been celebrated for his meticulous use of color and symmetrical composition. In films like Hero and House of Flying Daggers, he elevated color into an expressive narrative tool, and The Great Wall continues that tradition. The most immediate example is the color-coded armor worn by the Nameless Order. Each division wears a distinct color that visually identifies their role in the military hierarchy: blue for the Crane Corps, aerial jumpers; red for the Bear Troops, heavy melee units; yellow for alchemists, purple for the archers, and black for the foot soldiers. These vivid costumes serve both functional and aesthetic purposes, allowing the audience to follow complex battle sequences while also transforming combat scenes into vibrant, moving tableaus. The cinematographer for the film was Stuart Dryburgh, whose previous work included films like The Piano and Alice Through the Looking Glass. Under his direction, The Great Wall adopts a bright, high-saturation look that feels more theatrical than naturalistic. The lighting is evenly balanced, ensuring that costumes, faces, and sets are always visible even during night scenes or action sequences. The result is a film that embraces its artificiality. It doesn't strive for gritty realism but rather a heightened, almost operatic tone. This choice matches the fantastical premise and mythical setting. The camera work in the film is dynamic, often shifting between sweeping crane shots, aerial perspectives, and tightly framed character close-ups. Large-scale battle scenes frequently begin with high-altitude shots that emphasize the geometric patterns of the Nameless Order's formations. These wide shots then transition into medium and close angles that follow individual characters through the chaos, allowing the viewer to appreciate both the macro and micro aspects of the conflict. Zhang and Dryburgh choreograph the camera as much as the action, often moving it in long, fluid takes that echo the rhythm of the soldiers themselves. Slow motion is employed sparingly but effectively, usually to highlight moments of individual heroism or sacrifice. For example, when the Crane Corps dive off the wall tethered by ropes to spear the Tao Te midair, the motion slows down to accentuate the danger and precision involved. These sequences resemble ballet in their timing and composition, a hallmark of Zhang Yimou's style. The use of slow motion is never gratuitous. It emphasizes the beauty and brutality of war, as seen through the lens of ceremony and duty. Lighting is another crucial component of the film's aesthetic. The Great Wall is bathed in dramatic light, often with golden hues during moments of calm and cooler, bluish tones during night attacks. Firelight is a recurring visual motif, illuminating characters' faces as they prepare for battle or reflect in quiet moments. In scenes set in the Imperial City, lighting becomes more symbolic. Sunlight filtering through stained glass creates ethereal patterns, suggesting a fragile hope and the elegance of the human-made world under siege. Digital effects and CGI play a major role in the film, particularly in the depiction of the Tao-Ti creatures and their movement. While the visual effects were criticized by some for being too artificial or rubbery, their integration into the highly stylized world makes them feel more consistent than they might have in a more grounded film. The creatures are rendered with a focus on swarm behavior, and the camera often captures them from above or through wide shots to emphasize their collective threat. Close-ups of the creatures, especially the alpha drones and queen, are used sparingly but effectively to create tension and menace. Architectural design is another vital component of the film's visual identity. The Great Wall itself is reimagined with elements of both practicality and fantasy. The vertical structures, platforms, mechanical lifts, and weapon emplacements all add to the film's sense of scale and strategic depth. These set pieces are often symmetrical and ornate, more akin to a stage than a battlefield. The Imperial City is also elaborately designed, with curved rooftops, towering spires, and ceremonial halls that contrast the more utilitarian look of the wall's military environment. This shift in architecture serves a narrative function, showing the distance, both literal and symbolic, between the soldiers on the front lines and the society they protect. Visual motifs are used throughout the film to support its themes. Circles and spheres appear repeatedly, symbolizing unity, strategy, and the cyclical nature of the Tao-Ti attacks. For example, the spinning gear mechanisms used to raise soldiers and weapons, the spherical bombs used to destroy the queen, and even the balloon used in the climactic scene all mirror this visual language. Symmetry is another recurring motif, especially in the staging of battle scenes. Formations are shown as mirror images, reinforcing the discipline and harmony of the Nameless Order. Costume detail also plays an important role in the film's visual storytelling. The ornate armor, embroidered fabrics, and metallic textures catch the light in specific ways that highlight character rank and division. Commander Lin Mei's armor, for example, is more finely detailed and slightly distinct in tone, reflecting her leadership role and individual identity within the structure. Close-ups of her armor during emotional scenes emphasize the tension between her duty and her humanity. The visual style also helps underscore character arcs. William's transition from mercenary to warrior is reflected in his changing appearance. Initially clad in ragged, dusty clothes, he gradually adopts elements of the Order's armor and eventually wears their full regalia. This visual transformation mirrors his internal shift, making his development as much about how he is seen by others as how he sees himself. In battle scenes, motion and tempo are tightly controlled. The camera often glides through complex action set pieces with a dancer's precision, never lingering too long but also avoiding chaotic handheld shots. This approach contrasts with the more frenetic editing styles found in many Western action films. Instead, Zhang and Dreiberg use visual clarity to elevate tension. The audience is always aware of spatial relationships, lines of attack, and defensive structures. This emphasis on coherence over confusion ensures that the stakes remain understandable even when the screen is filled with hundreds of combatants. In quieter moments, visual stillness becomes just as important. Dialogue scenes are composed with deliberate framing, often placing characters in doorways, between pillars, or against vast backgrounds that dwarf them. This composition underscores their place in a larger order, both literally and philosophically. The Great Wall's ambitious scale and visual intensity are matched by an equally immersive audio landscape. While much attention is given to the film's visuals, its soundtrack and sound design play a crucial role in enhancing the atmosphere, pacing, and emotional resonance of the story. The music and sound effects not only support the action but often act as narrative tools themselves, guiding audience perception and reinforcing the thematic undercurrents of the film. The original score for The Great Wall was composed by Ramin Djawadi, a German composer best known for his work on Game of Thrones, Westworld, Iron Man, and Pacific Rim. Djawadi's signature style blends traditional orchestral arrangements with modern electronic elements, and in The Great Wall, he further expands his repertoire by incorporating Chinese instruments and tonal structures to reflect the film's setting. His score works to bridge East and West, much like the film itself, creating a hybrid musical identity that is both dramatic and culturally textured. One of the most striking features of Djawadi's score is its use of traditional Chinese instruments, such as the erhu, a two-stringed bowed instrument, guzheng, a plucked zither, dizi, a bamboo flute, and various types of gongs and drums. These sounds are not merely background color. They take the lead in several compositions, especially during scenes involving the Nameless Order and their rituals. For example, in the early sequence where the army prepares for battle atop the wall, the rhythmic pounding of war drums is underscored by subtle era melodies, establishing a sense of cultural grounding and anticipation. Percussion is a major component of the film's sonic identity. The soundtrack leans heavily on deep, tribal drums to create tension and momentum, particularly during large-scale battle scenes. These drums mimic the cadence of soldiers marching or the heartbeat of an approaching threat, such as the Tao Ti Horde. This relentless pulse becomes a sonic metaphor for the urgency and discipline of the Nameless Order. At times, the percussion becomes so dominant that it feels like a character in its own right, driving the scenes forward with almost military precision. During moments of personal reflection or emotional exchange, the score softens, allowing more melodic elements to take center stage. For instance, in quieter scenes between William and Commander Lin, the music shifts toward more introspective tones. Here, the erhu is used again, its haunting timbre evoking both intimacy and melancholy. These musical cues help flesh out the emotional world of the characters, especially when the dialogue itself is sparse or restrained. Djawadi also makes effective use of leitmotifs, recurring musical themes assigned to characters or concepts. The Tao Ti, for instance, are often introduced with a low, discordant rumble that builds into shrieking metallic tones. This auditory signature becomes associated with their presence, even before they appear on screen. Similarly, the Nameless Order has a unifying theme that plays during moments of valor and sacrifice, reinforcing their collective identity and mission. The integration of sound design with the musical score is seamless. Sound effects are tightly woven into the musical tapestry, often syncing with action beats to heighten their impact. For example, during the crane core dives off the wall, the whistling of wind, the taut snap of ropes, and the impact of weapons landing all blend rhythmically with the score. The sound team ensured that every beat of combat had a corresponding auditory cue, making the action feel tactile and immersive. The design of the Tao Ti's sound profile is particularly notable. These creatures do not just snarl or growl. They produce layered, unnatural noises that blend animalistic roars with digital distortions. The alpha drones have a distinct clicking and chirping pattern that mimics insects communicating or radar pings, while the queen emits a deeper, resonant call that can be felt as much as heard. These sound choices reinforce the idea that the Tao Ti are not simply monsters, but an organized, intelligent force. Ambient sound is used strategically throughout the film. During scenes set on the wall, wind howls across the stone battlements, flags ripple sharply, and distant echoes hint at the vastness of the landscape. These sounds serve to place the viewer in the environment, grounding the fantasy setting with familiar acoustic textures. In contrast, scenes set within the imperial city or underground tunnels feature more enclosed, echoic soundscapes, reflecting confinement or hidden danger. The film's climactic sequence in the imperial city uses sound to great dramatic effect. As William and Lin Mei ascend the stained-glass tower, the music builds slowly, incorporating choral elements and rising strings. The ticking tension of the scene, timed with the arrival of the Queen and the deployment of the explosive device, is amplified by a combination of sharp sound design and a gradually intensifying score. When the bomb finally detonates, the music swells and then abruptly cuts to silence, allowing the sound of crumbling debris and falling glass to dominate. This sudden shift creates a powerful emotional payoff, emphasizing the cost and significance of the victory. Dialogue and vocal delivery also contribute to the film's audio impact. The multilingual nature of the cast, with English and Mandarin spoken throughout, adds a layer of authenticity and global flavor. Sound mixing ensures that voices are clearly audible even amid loud action, a common challenge in effects-heavy films. The voice acting for the Tao Ti Queen, though minimal, is processed to sound both commanding and alien, further distinguishing her from the rest of the horde. The film's audio team also paid close attention to spatial dynamics. Sound pans smoothly from left to right in action scenes, following the movement of arrows, spears, or flying creatures. This use of directional audio helps situate the viewer within the chaos of battle and makes the experience more visceral. Explosions, creature shrieks, and crashes all have carefully calibrated impact, delivering deep, resonant bass tones in key moments to provide a physical sensation in theater sound systems or high-end headphones. In addition to the original score, the film's closing credits feature a fusion of Western cinematic themes and Chinese folk motifs, emphasizing the project's global scope. While the soundtrack was not released with significant mainstream promotion, it was well received by fans of Ramin Djawadi's work and continues to be praised for its ability to balance spectacle with emotional depth. In summary, the soundtrack and sound design of The Great Wall are integral to the film's overall effect. From the haunting strains of traditional Chinese instruments to the thunderous roar of combat, the audio elements are as carefully constructed as the visuals. Ramin Djawadi's score enhances character moments, heightens tension, and bridges cultural motifs, while the detailed sound effects ground the fantastical elements in a believable sonic reality. The result is a richly textured soundscape that supports and elevates the cinematic experience, even when the narrative itself may feel conventional. The Great Wall was released in December 2016 in China and February 2017 in the United States. From the outset, it was marketed as a global cinematic event, an unprecedented collaboration between Hollywood and the Chinese film industry, featuring a prominent international cast, a well-known director, and massive production values. Despite the film's grand ambitions, its reception was mixed, generating a wide range of critical reactions, social media debates, and cultural commentary. While the film found some success in certain markets, it also became a lightning rod for criticism, particularly regarding representation, narrative choices, and the blending of Eastern and Western storytelling sensibilities. Critically, The Great Wall struggled to win over Western reviewers. Many found the film visually stunning but narratively shallow. Critics praised director Zhang Yimou's visual flair, action choreography, and use of color, but often noted that these elements could not fully compensate for what was seen as a formulaic plot and underdeveloped characters. Several reviewers felt that the script lacked depth, with dialogue that was either overly expository or cliched. Some described the story as predictable, following familiar beats of redemption, loyalty, and heroism without offering fresh takes on those themes. On aggregate review platforms, the film scored modestly. On Rotten Tomatoes, it garnered an approval rating in the low 30s percentile among critics, indicating largely negative reviews. Metacritic gave it a score that reflected mixed or average reviews, while the audience score was slightly more generous, suggesting that while critics may have been underwhelmed, some viewers appreciated the spectacle. User reviews often highlighted the film's entertainment value, especially for fans of action and fantasy, while still acknowledging its shortcomings in writing and pacing. One of the most significant points of contention in Western media was the casting of Matt Damon in the lead role. Before the film even premiered, it drew criticism for what many interpreted as a white savior narrative, a common Hollywood trope in which a white character is portrayed as the hero in a non-Western setting. Critics and cultural commentators argued that Damon's casting reinforced problematic ideas about Western superiority and overshadowed the contributions of Asian characters and actors. The backlash was particularly vocal on social media, where hashtags and posts criticized the film's marketing as misleading, suggesting that it centered on a white protagonist in a story ostensibly about Chinese history and mythology. Zhang Yimou and the producers responded to these accusations by clarifying that the film was never intended to be a historical account, nor was it trying to portray Matt Damon's character as the savior of China. They emphasized that the film was a work of fantasy, with Damon's character functioning as a foreigner caught in an unfamiliar world, learning from and ultimately supporting the Nameless Order rather than leading them. They also pointed out that the film featured a predominantly Chinese cast in major roles and was primarily targeted at a Chinese audience. Despite these explanations, the controversy persisted and colored much of the critical discourse surrounding the film. In China, the reception was somewhat different. The film opened strongly at the box office, buoyed by national interest in a big-budget, homegrown fantasy directed by one of China's most respected filmmakers. Audiences were drawn to the visual spectacle, patriotic themes, and the novelty of a Hollywood star appearing in a Chinese-led production. However, Chinese critics were not universally enthusiastic. While many praised the technical achievements, including set design and battle sequences, others echoed Western concerns about the weak storyline and underutilized supporting characters. Some Chinese reviewers also questioned the effectiveness of the cultural fusion, suggesting that the film didn't fully satisfy either audience due to its hybrid identity. Box office performance reflected this ambivalence. In China, the film performed well in its opening weeks, earning over $170 million. However, it experienced a sharp drop in subsequent weeks due to mixed word of mouth and strong competition from other releases. In the United States, the film underperformed, bringing in less than $50 million, far below expectations given its production budget of around $150 million. Globally, the film earned roughly $334 million, making it financially successful in the broadest sense, but still seen as underwhelming considering the level of investment and marketing. Beyond the white savior debate, the film was also criticized for its narrative simplicity and lack of character development. Many viewers found it difficult to connect emotionally with the protagonists, especially with William, whose backstory was vague and whose motivations often felt thin. Commander Lin Mei, played by Jing Tian, was widely seen as a more compelling figure, but even she was limited by the film's emphasis on spectacle over introspection. Critics noted that the film missed opportunities to explore the deeper philosophical or moral dilemmas suggested by its premise, instead opting for a straightforward good versus evil structure. Despite its criticisms, The Great Wall was not without defenders. Some reviewers appreciated the film as a piece of visual art and commended it for attempting something unique in the realm of cross-cultural filmmaking. They pointed out that Zhang Yimou brought a strong directorial vision and that the film offered an alternative to the standard Hollywood action blockbuster. Others argued that the film's treatment by Western critics revealed double standards, where Hollywood films were allowed to be spectacle-driven and thinly plotted without incurring the same level of scrutiny. The Great Wall also inspired academic and cultural analysis, especially in the context of global cinema and soft power. Scholars explored how the film represented an early attempt at bridging the Chinese and American film industries, and how it reflected China's growing desire to project its culture globally through mainstream entertainment. The production was often cited in discussions about the challenges of making films that cater to both Eastern and Western sensibilities without alienating either audience. In terms of awards and accolades, the film received few major nominations in Western award circuits. However, it was recognized in China for its technical achievements, including costume design and visual effects. The lack of international awards mirrored the film's broader reception, appreciated for its craftsmanship but not embraced for its storytelling or innovation. In the years since its release, The Great Wall has maintained a somewhat ambiguous place in film history. It is frequently referenced in discussions about Hollywood's engagement with China, and it is often cited in both positive and negative contexts when exploring the possibilities and pitfalls of transnational cinema. While it did not become the franchise-launching hit that some had hoped, it remains a case study in global filmmaking, a bold, visually rich production that challenged conventional borders but struggled to fully satisfy any one audience. The Great Wall, despite its mixed reception and polarizing critical response, holds a unique place in the evolution of modern cinema, particularly as a landmark moment in the ongoing cultural and industrial exchange between Hollywood and China. Though it may not have achieved long-term commercial success or critical acclaim, the film's ambitions and execution contributed to conversations about globalization, transnational storytelling, and the future of co-productions in a rapidly changing entertainment landscape. Its legacy is less about the story it told and more about what it represented, a bold experiment in bridging markets, cultures, and cinematic traditions on a blockbuster scale. At the time of its release, The Great Wall was the most expensive film ever shot entirely in China, with a reported budget of over $150 million. It was a joint venture between American studio Legendary Entertainment, by then under Chinese ownership via Wanda Group, and China Film Group, symbolizing the strategic, financial, and creative entanglement between East and West. It stood as a test case for whether Hollywood storytelling techniques and Chinese cultural elements could coexist successfully in a mainstream blockbuster. This unprecedented collaboration attracted global attention, not just from film fans but also from industry analysts, investors, and cultural critics. Though the film did not generate sequels or become a franchise in the traditional sense, its existence helped pave the way for subsequent Hollywood-China collaborations. Studios and production companies began to more actively consider Chinese markets in their budgeting and creative decisions. For example, many post-2016 blockbusters such as Skyscraper, Transformers, The Last Night, and Pacific Rim Uprising were greenlit or altered with Chinese financing or audience appeal in mind. Chinese actors, locations, or plotlines began appearing more frequently in mainstream Hollywood films as part of a broader strategy to secure Chinese box office revenue. On a symbolic level, The Great Wall helped to normalize the idea that major Hollywood productions could be led by non-Western directors and crews. Although Zhang Yimou was already a globally acclaimed auteur known for films like Hero, House of Flying Daggers, and Raise the Red Lantern, directing a Hollywood-scale fantasy epic represented a significant milestone in his career and in the perception of Chinese filmmakers abroad. It opened doors for other non-Western directors to participate in international co-productions and elevated the global credibility of Chinese filmmaking talent. The film's ambition also contributed to the growing discussion around soft power and how nations use media and pop culture to influence global perception. China, through films like The Great Wall, sought not only to entertain but to showcase national heritage, aesthetics, and values on an international platform. Even though the film was criticized in some circles for its storytelling, its aesthetic success, highlighting traditional Chinese military formations, costumes, and architectural grandeur, was seen by many as an assertion of cultural pride. The film also inspired a broader dialogue about the white savior trope and how global cinema can inadvertently reinforce Western-centric narratives. This discussion, sparked in part by the casting of Matt Damon and the way the story unfolded, rippled into conversations about diversity and representation across multiple media industries. The backlash, though negative, served as a learning moment for studios, reminding them that representation and cultural sensitivity were crucial elements of global storytelling. In a way, the film contributed to the eventual shifts toward more inclusive casting and storytelling in Western films and television in the years that followed. In academic circles, The Great Wall became a popular subject for analysis in film studies, cultural studies, and international relations. Scholars dissected it as a case study in globalization, hybridization of genres, and the commodification of cultural symbols. Some viewed it as a failed experiment in cultural fusion, while others interpreted it as a meaningful, if imperfect, step toward a more integrated cinematic future. The film was often contrasted with earlier Hollywood depictions of China, which were frequently Orientalist or exoticized, noting how The Great Wall attempted to reframe Chinese mythology through its own lens. Visually and technically, The film set a high standard for future productions that aim to merge practical and digital effects. Its use of large-scale physical sets combined with cutting-edge VFX was praised even by critics who were otherwise unimpressed with the story. The battle sequences, intricate costumes, and creature designs influenced subsequent fantasy and action films, particularly those produced in Asia. The design of the Tao Ti, monstrous yet organized, with a unique biological and social structure, served as a reference point for other fantasy or sci-fi films looking to create enemy hordes with depth and distinction. Despite its lack of direct follow-ups, the film's intellectual property has remained in circulation. Merchandise such as action figures, posters, art books, and costume replicas became collector items, especially among fans of fantasy cinema. While there was no official sequel, the world-building in the film left open the possibility of expanding the story into other formats. Some discussions were held around potential animated series or video games based on the Nameless Order, although these projects have not materialized as of yet. In online fan communities, the film retains a niche but loyal following. Some viewers reevaluated The Great Wall in the years after its release, particularly in comparison to other Hollywood action films. As cultural awareness and criticism of Hollywood's biases increased, certain fans noted that The Great Wall, flawed though it may be, was a genuine effort at multicultural storytelling that deserved more credit than it initially received. Fan fiction, art, and essays continue to appear online, suggesting that the film's imaginative setting and diverse characters inspired creative engagement even if the film itself didn't become a mainstream hit. The legacy of The Great Wall also lies in its role as a cautionary tale for the entertainment industry. It demonstrated that simply combining big names, budgets, and international talent is not enough to guarantee success. Authenticity in storytelling, coherence in narrative structure, and respect for cultural nuance are equally important. The film underscored the challenges of trying to please both Eastern and Western audiences simultaneously and highlighted the need for a more organic blending of cultural elements rather than a mechanical mashup. In conclusion, while The Great Wall may not have altered the trajectory of fantasy cinema or launched a new franchise, it left a complex and multifaceted legacy. It contributed to shifting perceptions about international co-productions, stimulated debates about representation and cultural exchange, and helped lay the groundwork for future cross-border collaborations in entertainment. Its influence is most visible not in sequels or spin-offs, but in the conversations it sparked and the quiet changes it encouraged within the global film industry. In a world where East and West continue to intersect through media, The Great Wall remains a reference point, both for what is possible and for what pitfalls to avoid. Audiences around the world approached The Great Wall with a mix of curiosity, skepticism, and anticipation. As one of the first major Hollywood-China co-productions of its scale, and with the added intrigue of Zhang Yimou directing a fantasy epic starring Matt Damon, expectations were both high and varied. While critical reviews were mixed, audience responses proved more nuanced. Reflections ranged from admiration of the film's visuals and ambition to frustration with its storytelling choices and cultural representation. Different regions, generations, and social groups engaged with the film through their own lenses, revealing how deeply personal and cultural interpretation can shape cinematic experience. For many Chinese audiences, The Great Wall was a source of national pride, at least upon its initial release. There was a sense of excitement about seeing a Chinese-directed, Chinese-funded, and largely Chinese-acted film get a high-profile global release. The presence of international stars and the use of Hollywood-level special effects lent the film a kind of prestige that resonated with viewers seeking to see Chinese cinema compete on a global stage. Older viewers familiar with Zhang Yimou's earlier, more art-house work were divided. Some appreciated his venture into blockbuster territory, while others lamented a perceived compromise of artistic integrity in favor of westernized storytelling. Younger Chinese viewers, particularly those who grew up with both Eastern and Western entertainment, had a more mixed response. They appreciated the film's attempt to combine elements of Chinese mythology with high-concept action, but some felt the execution lacked depth and authenticity. Still, many were intrigued by the idea of the Nameless Order and its disciplined, color-coded battalions, viewing it as a fresh take on traditional Chinese heroism. The concept of unity, sacrifice, and honor in the face of monstrous adversity resonated with many, particularly in a cultural environment that values collective identity and national strength. Western audiences, on the other hand, largely came into the film with different expectations. Some were drawn by the fantasy premise and the star power of Matt Damon, while others were wary of what the film represented, either as a perceived cash grab targeting the Chinese market or as another example of Hollywood misappropriating non-Western culture. Generationally, younger Western viewers who were more attuned to issues of representation and cultural appropriation were among the most vocal critics. Social media platforms, particularly Twitter and Tumblr, became spaces for critical discourse around the white savior narrative, with many users challenging the film's decision to center a Western protagonist in a story steeped in Chinese mythology. That said, not all Western viewers reacted negatively. A portion of the audience, especially those who enjoy high fantasy and epic action films, found The Great Wall entertaining and visually captivating. Some fans of Zhang Yimou appreciated his transition into global filmmaking and praised his ability to retain elements of his signature style, even within the constraints of blockbuster production. Others interpreted the film not as a historical or cultural statement, but as a pure work of genre fiction, meant to be enjoyed for its spectacle rather than scrutinized for its cultural politics. Audiences from other parts of the world had their own unique interpretations. In countries across Southeast Asia, the film's themes of collective defense, loyalty, and duty resonated due to shared cultural values. Meanwhile, viewers in Europe and Latin America tended to focus more on the film's cinematic qualities, its set design, visual effects, and pacing, rather than its cultural implications. In regions with strong traditions of mythology and folklore, the idea of monsters attacking the Great Wall was received as an engaging if fantastical metaphor for ancient fears and defenses. An interesting facet of the film's reception was how it appealed differently to casual moviegoers versus more cinephilic or academically inclined viewers. Casual viewers who entered the theater with minimal expectations often found the film enjoyable for what it was, a visually extravagant, action-packed fantasy. They appreciated the film's brisk pace, its large-scale battles, and its creatures. For these viewers, the film was a weekend escape, an imaginative journey into an alternate historical reality. More critical viewers, however, tended to dissect the film's narrative structure, cultural messaging, and character development. They questioned the emotional flatness of some performances and pointed out the lack of complexity in the protagonist's journey. They also noted the way the film glossed over certain elements of Chinese mythology, presenting a simplified or sanitized version for international consumption. This sparked conversations about how cultures are represented in global cinema and the trade-offs that occur when aiming for cross-cultural appeal. Online forums, particularly Reddit, Letterboxd, and specialized film communities, became platforms for post-viewing discussion. Many users posted essays and reviews, some defending the film as an important if flawed cultural bridge, others critiquing it for falling into old narrative traps. Some discussions evolved into broader reflections on the role of cinema in cultural diplomacy, asking whether it's better to attempt imperfect representation or to avoid cross-cultural storytelling altogether. Generationally, older viewers tended to view the film through a more classical lens. They compared it to epic war films, traditional monster movies, or historical adventure stories. They appreciated the grandeur, the orchestration of large battle scenes, and the clarity of good versus evil. Younger audiences, by contrast, looked for subtext, nuance, and social messaging. For them, the film's meaning or lack thereof lay not only in what it showed on screen, but in what it represented off-screen, who gets to tell stories, whose voice is centered, and how global narratives are shaped. In some circles, the film became a topic of classroom discussion, particularly in film studies or media theory courses. Students were encouraged to analyze the film's approach to visual storytelling, its use of archetypes, and the implications of its casting and production structure. These discussions often revealed a generational shift in how media is interpreted, not simply as entertainment, but as a cultural product embedded with values, assumptions, and power dynamics. Viewers also reflected on the symbolic aspects of the Great Wall itself. Some interpreted the wall as a metaphor for division between cultures, ideologies, or civilizations, while others saw it as a symbol of unity and protection. The fact that the story revolved around people from different backgrounds coming together to defend humanity from an existential threat was interpreted by some as a subtle commentary on global cooperation in the face of shared crises. Despite its flaws, the film's scale and visual ambition impressed many. It became one of those movies where viewers might criticize the script or characters, but still recall specific images or sequences fondly. The synchronized leaps of the Crane Corps, the massive assault of the Tao Ti, or the brilliant red and blue costuming of the Nameless Order. These impressions, while not always tied to a strong emotional arc, nonetheless contributed to the film's lingering place in memory. The Great Wall presents a cast of characters whose individual journeys, while set against an epic backdrop, provide the emotional core of the film. Though the story is centered around large-scale battles and grand mythology, the character development drives much of the narrative tension and thematic exploration. Examining the main characters, William Guerin, Commander Lin Mei, Strategist Wang, and Sir Ballard, reveals how each embodies different facets of loyalty, identity, and sacrifice, while their arcs intertwine to create the film's emotional texture. William Guerin, played by Matt Damon, serves as the film's protagonist and audience surrogate. As a European mercenary and former soldier of fortune, William arrives in China searching for black powder, motivated by greed and survival. His arc is fundamentally one of transformation, from a self-interested outsider to a committed defender of the Nameless Order and their mission. Initially, William is driven by practical concerns. He wants to escape the Tao Ti and gain valuable weapons. His bravado, skepticism, and sarcasm mask a deeply ingrained survival instinct. As the film progresses, William's encounters with the Nameless Order, particularly Commander Lin Mei, challenge his worldview. Lin Mei's discipline, sense of honor, and unwavering dedication expose William's own moral ambiguity. Through shared battle experiences and growing respect, William begins to embrace the collective purpose over individual gain. His arc culminates in the acceptance of his role as protector of humanity, sacrificing personal ambitions for the greater good. This transformation is emblematic of the film's theme of unity and cooperation, as William's outsider status evolves into full integration. Commander Lin Mei, portrayed by Jean Xing, is the heart and soul of the Nameless Order's military force. She embodies strength, leadership, and unwavering dedication to duty. Lin Mei's character arc, though less about transformation, explores the tension between loyalty to tradition and the necessity for innovation. As the leader of the Blue Legion, she is burdened with the responsibility of defending the Great Wall and upholding centuries-old traditions. Lin Mei's interactions with William serve as a crucible for testing both characters' beliefs. She initially views William with suspicion, seeing him as reckless and self-serving. However, over time, she recognizes his courage and strategic value. Lin Mei's journey is one of cautious opening, learning to trust an outsider and adapt her rigid principles to new circumstances. This evolution highlights the film's message about bridging cultural divides and embracing change without losing identity. Strategist Wang, played by Andy Lau, provides a different perspective within the Nameless Order. Calm, intelligent, and pragmatic, Wang's character offers insight into the Order's long-term strategies and the intellectual underpinnings of their fight. Unlike Lin Mei's focus on frontline leadership, Wang's arc revolves around balancing tradition with innovation, advocating for new tactics against the Tao Ti. Though his transformation is subtle, Wang's role is crucial in pushing the narrative toward the eventual victory. His pragmatic approach contrasts with the emotional and honor-driven leadership of Lin Mei, creating internal tension within the Order's hierarchy. This dynamic adds complexity to the otherwise straightforward conflict and underlines the theme that adaptability is essential in overcoming unprecedented threats. Wang's steady presence also humanizes the vast military force, showing that strategy and intellect are as vital as brute strength. Sir Ballard, portrayed by Pedro Pascal, acts as a foil to William and a representation of old-world mercenary cynicism. As William's partner, Ballard is more jaded and pragmatic, focused on personal survival rather than ideals. His arc is less developed than William's, but still significant in highlighting the stakes and emotional costs of their journey. Ballard's skepticism provides contrast to William's eventual transformation, underscoring how exposure to the Nameless Order's mission challenges their mercenary ethos. Ballard's death midway through the film serves as a turning point for William, removing his closest companion and forcing him to confront the gravity of their situation alone. This loss propels William deeper into commitment with the Order and intensifies the emotional stakes. Ballard's character represents the costs of war and the fragility of alliances built solely on convenience. The Tao Te themselves, though monstrous antagonists rather than traditional characters, have a form of collective characterization. Their hierarchical society, with a queen and varying classes of warriors, adds layers to the film's conflict. The Tao Te are portrayed not merely as mindless beasts but as an organized, adaptive species posing an existential threat. This nuanced portrayal elevates the narrative beyond simple good versus evil, emphasizing themes of survival and ecological balance. Supporting characters, such as the Nameless Order's other Legion leaders and soldiers, contribute to the film's emotional depth by illustrating the human cost of the battle. Their sacrifices and camaraderie create a sense of community and shared purpose that contrasts with William and Ballard's initial mercenary isolation. These minor arcs, though less pronounced, reinforce the film's larger themes of loyalty and collective identity. Romantic or interpersonal subplots in the film are minimal but nonetheless serve to humanize the characters and add emotional stakes. William's subtle bond with Lin May hints at cross-cultural connection and mutual respect, though the film does not delve deeply into romance. This restraint arguably maintains the focus on action and epic scale, but leaves some emotional threads underexplored. The character arcs in The Great Wall work within the constraints of a blockbuster fantasy, prioritizing archetypes and clear motivations over complex psychological depth. William's journey from outsider to hero fits a classic hero's arc, providing audiences with a familiar emotional through line amid the film's spectacle. Lin May represents the ideal of disciplined leadership, embodying both strength and compassion. Wang and Ballard serve as complementary figures, grounding the narrative in strategic and emotional realism. In summary, the film's characters develop in ways that support its overarching themes of unity, sacrifice, and cultural bridging. William Guerin's transformation stands at the center, illustrating how exposure to new perspectives and shared struggle can lead to personal growth. Lin May's cautious openness to change balances the narrative, highlighting the tension between tradition and innovation. While the characters may not exhibit profound psychological complexity, their arcs are clear and purposeful, designed to engage audiences and propel the story's epic momentum. The Great Wall's character development, therefore, functions as a framework within which the film's spectacular visual and thematic elements operate. Through their journeys, the characters embody the film's core messages and invite viewers to reflect on the nature of identity, loyalty, and courage in the face of overwhelming odds. One of the most striking aspects of The Great Wall is its meticulous and ambitious approach to costume and set design, which together create an immersive world that feels both ancient and fantastical. These elements play a crucial role in establishing the film's setting, conveying character identities and social hierarchies, and supporting the tone and themes of the story. The costume design, led by Timmy Yip, is a vibrant tapestry of color, texture, and symbolism. It reflects the film's blend of historical inspiration and imaginative fantasy. The Nameless Order's uniforms are among the most memorable visual features, distinguished by their color-coded battalions: red, blue, black, yellow, and green. Each color represents a legion with specialized skills and tactical roles, and the costumes visually reinforce this organization. The Red Legion, led by Commander Lin May, is clad in striking red armor that evokes both authority and valor. The armor is intricately detailed with patterns reminiscent of traditional Chinese motifs, blending historical aesthetics with the functional design required for battle scenes. The use of red symbolizes courage, sacrifice, and leadership, helping to immediately identify Lin Mei's unit as central to the story. Similarly, the Blue Legion's costumes feature blue tones and streamlined designs that suggest agility and precision. The distinct visual language of each legion allows audiences to easily track the different groups during chaotic battle sequences and understand their tactical strengths. This use of color as a narrative device is a smart design choice that enhances clarity in the film's complex action scenes. Beyond color coding, the armor and clothing combine traditional Chinese elements, such as lamellar armor plates, intricate embroidery, and flowing robes, with a futuristic fantasy sensibility. Materials like leather, metal, and silk are layered and textured to convey both durability and elegance. This hybrid aesthetic helps ground the film's fantastical elements in a believable, tactile world. Makeup and hairstyling also contribute to character differentiation and cultural authenticity. The Nameless Order soldiers often sport hairstyles and facial adornments that reflect their legion's identity and rank. Lin Mei's sleek hair and minimalistic makeup emphasize her disciplined, no-nonsense persona. Meanwhile, other characters wear traditional hairpieces or simple warrior braids, reinforcing their martial roles. The antagonistic Tao Ti creatures demanded a different kind of design approach. The special effects and creature design teams crafted these monsters with a combination of practical prosthetics and computer-generated imagery. Their grotesque, insectoid appearance contrasts sharply with the human characters' refined costumes. The Tao Ti's design evokes primal fear and otherness, visually setting them apart as the existential threat that unites the protagonists. Moving to set design, the film's locations and constructed environments are key to building its epic atmosphere. Although the story is set at the Great Wall of China, much of the filming took place on constructed sets in Qingdao and Inner Mongolia. These sets recreated sections of the wall in impressive detail, with attention paid to historical architectural elements such as watchtowers, battlements, and stonework. The wall itself is a character in the film, and its imposing presence is conveyed through scale and texture. The sets emphasize the wall's role as both a defensive structure and a symbol of human resilience. The narrow walkways, high parapets, and looming towers create a claustrophobic tension during battle scenes, while also providing dramatic vantage points for cinematic composition. Interior sets, such as the command chambers and armories, blend traditional Chinese design elements with utilitarian military function. Dark wood paneling, ornate carvings, and hanging banners coexist with weapon racks and tactical maps. These spaces serve as strategic hubs where leaders plan and characters interact, grounding the film's fantastical elements in a realistic military context. The set designers also created a variety of outdoor environments to diversify the visual palette. Fog-shrouded mountains, dense forests, and open plains frame different segments of the battle, providing contrast and pacing for the action. These naturalistic backdrops juxtapose with a constructed man-made wall, emphasizing themes of nature versus civilization. Lighting design complements the costumes and sets by enhancing mood and atmosphere. Scenes within the wall's fortifications often use muted, shadowed lighting to convey tension and danger, while exterior battle scenes employ bright, dynamic lighting to highlight the scale and chaos. The interplay of light and shadow also accentuates costume textures, making armor gleam and fabrics ripple. An important design choice is how the film balances historical inspiration with fantasy creativity. While the costumes and sets draw on recognizable elements of ancient Chinese military history, they avoid strict adherence to historical accuracy. This deliberate blending allows the film to create a visually rich and imaginative world that feels authentic enough to be believable but fantastical enough to support the story's supernatural elements. The costume and set design also play a narrative role in character development. For example, William Guerin's wardrobe shifts from rugged, worn mercenary clothing to a more integrated uniform of the Nameless Order. This transformation visually represents his evolving allegiance and internal growth. Similarly, Lin Mei's pristine armor contrasts with the battle-worn gear of lower-ranked soldiers, reinforcing her leadership status. Attention to detail is evident in smaller design elements as well. Weapons such as spears, bows, and the signature crossbows are intricately crafted, combining traditional forms with fantasy enhancements. Props like lanterns, banners, and insignias further enrich the world building, giving viewers a sense of a living, functioning military society. The costumes also reflect the film's thematic exploration of unity and diversity. While each legion has distinct colors and styles, they share common design principles that symbolize their shared mission and identity as protectors of humanity. This visual unity underscores the narrative message that strength comes from cooperation despite differences. The makeup and prosthetics for the Tao Te push boundaries in creature design, mixing horror and fantasy. Their multi-limbed forms, carapace-like exteriors, and glowing eyes are designed to evoke an alien and terrifying presence. The design team's work in bringing these creatures to life was critical in making the antagonists feel real and formidable, raising the stakes for the human characters. Overall, the costume and set design of the Great Wall function as a vital storytelling tool, supporting character arcs, thematic content, and world building. They immerse viewers in a visually distinctive and coherent universe where ancient traditions meet speculative fantasy. The detailed craftsmanship and imaginative choices elevate the film's spectacle and help it stand out within the crowded field of epic fantasy cinema. The script of The Great Wall plays a pivotal role in shaping the film's narrative flow, character interactions, and emotional engagement. Crafted by Carter Blake, Taylor Jessen, and Edward Zwick among others, the screenplay is a blend of action-driven storytelling, fantasy mythology, and occasional moments of levity. Analyzing the dialogue and scriptwriting reveals both the strengths and weaknesses that influence the film's reception and overall impact. At its core, the screenplay follows a classic heroic journey framework, with a clear narrative arc centered around William Guerin's transformation from mercenary outsider to committed defender. This structure gives the film a familiar rhythm that audiences can easily follow. However, the script also attempts to weave in cultural elements and mythological background, which sometimes results in exposition-heavy dialogue. One of the primary challenges of the screenplay is balancing action sequences with character development and world building. The dialogue often functions as a vehicle for delivering crucial information about the Tao Te, the Nameless Order, and the Great Wall itself. While necessary, some of these explanatory lines come across as somewhat clunky or overly direct, detracting from the natural flow of conversation. Nonetheless, the film does include several memorable lines that capture character personalities and themes. William Guerin's sarcastic quips and dry humor provide moments of relief amid intense battle scenes. These lines help humanize the protagonist and make him relatable despite the film's high-concept fantasy setting. His witty remarks often highlight his skepticism and mercenary nature early on, providing a sharp contrast to the stoic discipline of Lin Mei and the other Nameless Order members. Lin Mei's dialogue is typically measured and authoritative, reflecting her leadership role and disciplined mindset. Her lines often emphasize themes of duty, honor, and sacrifice, reinforcing her status as the moral compass of the film. While she rarely delivers lengthy monologues, her succinct, powerful statements carry emotional weight and lend gravitas to key moments. The interactions between William and Lin may stand out for their mix of cultural clash and mutual respect. Their conversations explore differences in worldview and approach to conflict, sometimes with subtle humor or tension. The script uses these exchanges to develop character relationships and explore broader themes of unity and understanding across cultures. The supporting characters, such as strategist Wang and Sir Ballard, have dialogue that helps flesh out the world and provide varying perspectives. Wang's lines tend to be pragmatic and thoughtful, focusing on strategy and survival, while Ballard's dialogue often echoes William's cynical, self-preserving attitude. This contrast enriches the character dynamics and adds layers to the interpersonal conflict. Humor is sparingly used, but effectively punctuates moments of tension. William's sarcasm and occasional light-hearted banter with Ballard inject levity, preventing the film from becoming overly grim. However, some humor falls flat or feels out of place within the serious tone of other scenes, suggesting inconsistency in the script's tonal balance. The screenplay also attempts to incorporate philosophical reflections on themes such as sacrifice, identity, and the nature of heroism. While these moments add depth, they sometimes feel forced or underdeveloped, leaving viewers wanting more nuanced exploration. The dialogue in these scenes tends toward broad statements rather than subtle or complex exchanges. Pacing is another key aspect influenced by the script. The film moves briskly, with dialogue often serving to set up action sequences or clarify stakes. This results in a fast-moving narrative that prioritizes spectacle but occasionally sacrifices character nuance or emotional buildup. Transitional scenes can feel rushed, limiting opportunities for deeper connection with the characters. Exposition is often delivered through dialogue, particularly when explaining the Tao Te's origins, the purpose of the Great Wall, and the Nameless Order's history. While necessary for audience understanding, these moments sometimes lack subtlety, coming across as overt info dumps rather than integrated storytelling. This detracts from immersion, as characters occasionally speak in ways that feel more directed at the audience than natural conversation. Despite these flaws, the script effectively builds tension through escalating stakes and well-placed dialogue exchanges. Conversations before and after battles reveal character motivations and fears, heightening the emotional resonance of the action. The script also uses silence and physicality in key moments, letting visuals and performances carry weight alongside words. The scriptwriting's use of conflict, both external and internal, is central to the narrative. Dialogue often reveals tensions between William's self-interest and growing commitment, Lin Mei's strict adherence to tradition and need for adaptability, and the Order's collective will versus individual desires. These conflicts are dramatized through confrontational and reflective dialogue, contributing to character development. Memorable lines are sometimes overshadowed by the film's grand spectacle, but they serve to anchor key themes. For example, William's realization that the Tao Te must be stopped not only to save China, but the entire world crystallizes the film's global stakes. Lin Mei's expressions of duty and sacrifice emphasize the weight of responsibility carried by the Nameless Order. In terms of language style, the dialogue generally opts for clarity and accessibility over poetic or literary complexity. This suits the blockbuster action fantasy genre, ensuring broad audience understanding. However, it occasionally limits the potential for more nuanced or layered character portrayals. The script also struggles with cultural authenticity at times, with some lines feeling stereotypical or simplistic in their portrayal of Chinese culture and philosophy. This has been a point of criticism, as it affects the film's credibility and the richness of its cultural setting. Efforts to balance Western and Eastern storytelling styles sometimes result in uneven dialogue. The chemistry between actors and their delivery of lines, however, often elevate the written dialogue. Matt Damon's charisma and timing bring energy to William's lines, while Gene Xing's commanding presence imbues Lin Mei's words with power. These performances help make the script's dialogue more engaging than the page alone might suggest. Overall, the dialogue and scriptwriting of The Great Wall provide a functional foundation for the film's narrative and character arcs. While there are moments of weakness, particularly with exposition and tonal inconsistency, the script succeeds in delivering clear storytelling, thematic emphasis, and some memorable exchanges. It balances the demands of world-building, action pacing, and character interaction within the confines of a large-scale fantasy blockbuster. The marketing and promotion of The Great Wall reflected the film's ambitious goal to appeal to both Chinese and international audiences, particularly the Western blockbuster market. As a large-scale co-production between Hollywood and Chinese studios, the marketing campaign had to navigate cultural differences, language barriers, and varied audience expectations. The film's promotional strategy combined traditional media, digital platforms, and cross-cultural messaging in an effort to build anticipation and maximize box office performance. Trailers and teasers were the cornerstone of the promotional campaign. The first official trailer, released about a year before the film's premiere, showcased the film's epic scale, spectacular battle sequences, and the visual spectacle of the Great Wall itself. It emphasized the action and fantasy elements, featuring glimpses of the Tao Te monsters, the color-coded legions, and the star power of Matt Damon and Gene Xing. The trailer was designed to intrigue global audiences by blending familiar Hollywood blockbuster tropes with Chinese cultural iconography. Subsequent trailers and TV spots targeted different markets, with slightly adjusted messaging. In China, Promotional material highlighted the film's Chinese cast, cultural themes, and historical setting, aiming to capitalize on national pride and local appeal. Internationally, the focus was more on the film's action, fantasy, and star appeal, positioning it as a spectacle comparable to other major franchise films. Posters and key art were another important element of marketing. Official posters featured Matt Damon prominently, often alongside Jean Xing, and the imposing Great Wall, set against dramatic skies and looming Tao-Ti creatures. The use of bold colors and dynamic compositions helped convey the film's epic tone. Multiple poster variations targeted different regions, with some emphasizing the Western stars and others spotlighting the Chinese cast. Social media campaigns played a significant role in engaging fans and generating buzz. Official accounts on platforms such as Weibo, Twitter, and Facebook shared behind-the-scenes footage, interviews with cast and crew, concept art, and countdowns to the release date. Interactive content, including quizzes and fan contests, encouraged audience participation. The marketing team also leveraged influencer partnerships and online fan communities to amplify reach. One innovative promotional strategy involved collaborations with video game developers and mobile app creators to produce tie-in games and augmented reality experiences. These digital extensions of the Great Wall universe aimed to immerse fans further into the film's world and sustain interest beyond the theatrical release. Such cross-media marketing tapped into the growing trend of experiential campaigns that blend entertainment and technology. Merchandising was another key promotional avenue. Officially licensed products included action figures of the main characters, replica weapons like the crossbows, clothing inspired by the color-coded legions, and collectible items featuring the Tao-Ti creatures. Merchandise was marketed heavily in China, where consumer enthusiasm for film-related goods tends to be strong, but was also made available internationally through online retailers. Premiere events and press tours were strategically organized to maximize media coverage and star visibility. Matt Damon and Jean Xing appeared at high-profile events in Beijing, Los Angeles, and other major cities, participating in interviews, photo calls, and fan meet-and-greets. These appearances helped humanize the film and build personal connections with potential viewers. The marketing also faced challenges, particularly regarding public perception and cultural sensitivity. The campaign worked to address concerns about representation and the film's East-West casting choices, emphasizing the collaborative nature of the production and the respect for Chinese history and mythology. Messaging stressed the film's role in bridging cultural gaps through entertainment. Internationally, the marketing highlighted the film's blend of familiar Hollywood action with a fresh setting and mythology, appealing to fans of fantasy and historical epics. Teaser campaigns teased the mysterious Tao-Ti creatures, generating curiosity and speculation on social media, which helped sustain interest in the lead-up to release. Trailers and promotional materials frequently highlighted the film's cutting-edge visual effects and large-scale battle scenes to entice audiences seeking blockbuster spectacle. The marketing positioned The Great Wall alongside other tentpole releases, using comparisons to popular franchises like Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings to frame audience expectations. In China, the promotional campaign emphasized national pride in the Great Wall as a cultural icon, leveraging patriotic sentiments to boost interest. Advertisements often focused on the film's depiction of ancient Chinese warriors and mythology, framing it as a celebration of Chinese heritage on the global stage. This approach resonated well with domestic audiences, contributing to the film's strong box office opening there. Additionally, tie-ins with Chinese brands and sponsors further embedded the film into the local market. Partnerships with technology companies, beverage brands, and fashion labels provided cross-promotional opportunities and broadened the film's visibility beyond traditional cinema audiences. The marketing campaign also included strategic timing to coincide with important release windows, avoiding clashes with other major blockbusters when possible. This allowed The Great Wall to maximize its theatrical potential, especially in the lucrative Chinese market. Despite these extensive efforts, some critics noted that the film's marketing may have struggled to clearly communicate its unique identity. The blend of Eastern and Western elements, while a strength, also created confusion about the film's core appeal. Some promotional materials emphasized Matt Damon heavily, which alienated parts of the Chinese audience who expected a more prominent role for local stars. Overall, the marketing and promotional strategy for The Great Wall was comprehensive, multifaceted, and reflective of the film's dual cultural ambitions. It successfully generated significant awareness and interest, particularly in China, but encountered challenges in fully bridging the expectations of diverse global audiences. The campaign's combination of traditional advertising, social media engagement, merchandising, experiential digital content, and high-profile events illustrates the complexity of launching a cross-cultural blockbuster in today's global entertainment landscape. In conclusion, The Great Wall's marketing and promotion efforts demonstrate the evolving strategies required to market international co-productions. They highlight both the potential and pitfalls of navigating cultural dynamics, audience preferences, and blockbuster competition. The campaign's successes and shortcomings offer valuable lessons for future films seeking to unite East and West in cinematic storytelling. The Great Wall occupies a unique place at the crossroads of Hollywood blockbuster filmmaking and Chinese historical fantasy, making it a fascinating subject for comparative analysis. To fully appreciate its significance and distinctive qualities, it helps to examine the film alongside similar movies in the fantasy and action genres, earlier cinematic depictions of China's Great Wall or related legends, and other films by director Zhang Yimou. These comparisons reveal the Great Wall's tonal choices, narrative style, visual ambitions, and cultural positioning within a broader cinematic context. First, comparing The Great Wall to other major fantasy epics and action-adventure films reveals both its inspirations and departures. Films like the Lord of the Rings trilogy and the Hobbit series established a high bar for blending epic storytelling, intricate world-building, and deep character arcs within a mythological fantasy setting. Similarly, Game of Thrones popularized complex political intrigue and morally ambiguous characters alongside spectacular battles. The Great Wall draws from these traditions by offering large-scale set pieces, mythical creatures, and a heroic journey narrative. However, The Great Wall distinguishes itself through its distinct cultural fusion. Unlike many Western fantasy films rooted in European medieval or mythic motifs, The Great Wall is steeped in Chinese history and mythology. Its depiction of the Nameless Order, color-coded legions, and the Tao Ti monsters create a world that feels both grounded in Chinese cultural elements and imaginatively fantastical. This hybrid identity is rare among blockbuster films, setting it apart from more Western-centric fantasy franchises. Tonally, The Great Wall balances seriousness with moments of levity, but tends to lean more towards spectacle and action than complex character or political drama. Compared to the layered narrative and moral ambiguity of Game of Thrones, The Great Wall presents clearer distinctions between good and evil and a more straightforward heroic arc. This approach aligns it with classic adventure films like Indiana Jones or Gladiator, where the focus is on the hero's quest, epic battles, and dramatic stakes rather than intricate world politics. Looking at earlier cinematic representations of China's Great Wall, there are relatively few films that have tackled the subject with the scale and fantasy scope of The Great Wall. Many historical dramas and documentaries explore the wall's construction, historical significance, and symbolic meaning, but few integrate fantastical creatures or epic battles on this scale. In this respect, The Great Wall breaks new ground by combining history with myth in a blockbuster format. Films such as the 1986 Chinese epic The Great Wall of China or various documentaries treat the wall as a monument and symbol of Chinese resilience and ingenuity, focusing on its real historical context. By contrast, the Great Wall film reimagines the wall as a supernatural bastion protecting humanity from monstrous invaders. This speculative reinterpretation opens new narrative possibilities and appeals to a global audience attracted to fantasy and action genres. The Great Wall also invites comparison to other East-West co-productions attempting to blend Hollywood and Chinese cinematic traditions. Films like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Sword of Destiny, or Mulan, 2020, similarly sought to balance cultural authenticity with broad blockbuster appeal. The Great Wall's approach, however, is more oriented towards Hollywood spectacle, with a clear star vehicle for Matt Damon. while incorporating Chinese actors and themes to broaden its cultural resonance. When comparing The Great Wall to other films by director Zhang Yimou, it becomes clear that this film represents a departure in style and scope. Zhang, acclaimed for visually rich dramas such as Hero, House of Flying Daggers, and Raise the Red Lantern, is known for his poetic storytelling, lush color palettes, and intricate choreography. While The Great Wall shares his penchant for visual spectacle and color symbolism, it adopts a more commercial, blockbuster-driven narrative style. Zhang's earlier works tend to emphasize emotional depth, cultural introspection, and complex characters, often rooted in Chinese history and folklore but filtered through an art house lens. The Great Wall, by contrast, aims for mass entertainment with global appeal, prioritizing large-scale battles and special effects over intimate character study. This shift has led to mixed critical reception, with some praising the ambitious production values and others lamenting a loss of Zhang's signature narrative subtlety. The Great Wall's visual style retains elements of Zhang's aesthetic, particularly in its use of color-coded legions and striking compositions. However, the film also incorporates Hollywood-style action editing and CGI spectacle, blending East and West filmmaking techniques. This fusion results in a hybrid cinematic language that is ambitious, but at times uneven. Comparing The Great Wall to other monster or creature feature films highlights its place within a broader tradition of epic fantasy adventures against monstrous threats. Films such as Pacific Rim, Clash of the Titans, and Godzilla explore humanity's battle against formidable, often otherworldly creatures, combining mythology with modern spectacle. The Great Wall fits within this genre, but is notable for its integration of Chinese martial culture and historical iconography. The film's color-coded military legions recall similar organizational visuals in science fiction and fantasy, such as the distinct houses in Star Wars or the clans in Dune. This visual clarity aids storytelling by helping audiences track allegiances and combat strategies during large battle scenes. The Great Wall's unique cultural twist on this trope distinguishes it within the genre. Furthermore, The Great Wall's exploration of themes like sacrifice, unity, and human resilience is a common thread among epic fantasy films. However, its specific framing through Chinese cultural and historical lenses adds a new dimension, inviting audiences to reconsider familiar narratives in a fresh context. The film's narrative arc also invites comparison to classic, outsider joins the local cause stories such as Predator or Avatar, where an outsider initially skeptical of local ways eventually becomes a committed protector. This trope provides a familiar entry point for Western audiences, but is reimagined here within a Chinese setting, blending cultural storytelling modes. In terms of storytelling techniques, The Great Wall incorporates montage sequences, flashbacks explaining mythology, and dynamic battle choreography reminiscent of both Hollywood blockbusters and traditional Chinese martial arts cinema. This hybrid style attempts to appeal to fans of both cinematic traditions, although it sometimes leads to tonal shifts that critics and audiences found jarring. The Great Wall's attempt to balance historical epic with speculative fantasy also parallels films like 300 or Clash of the Titans, where mythic elements heighten historical settings. However, The Great Wall's more subdued character development and greater reliance on spectacle market as a film designed primarily for visual impact rather than narrative complexity.